My name is Daniel Harris. I'm 41, a single dad trying to survive in Pittsburgh. And the day I opened that letter, everything I thought I knew about my life began to fall apart. Daniel's mornings were all the same. Wake up early, pack Emily's school lunch, and hope the truck starts. As a mechanic working paycheck to paycheck, life was always one step ahead of him. Rent overdue, fridge half empty, and a boss who reminded him daily how replaceable he was. But that morning was different. Mixed in with the usual stack of bills was a letter, thick parchment, strange seal, no return address. He opened it slowly. Reverend Thomas Harris, deceased. Next of kin, Daniel Harris. Last will and testament. The property located at 312 Rock Hollow Road shall be transferred to Mr. Harris, effective immediately. Daniel blinked. Wait, my uncle? The one we never talked about. He barely remembered the man. Just flashes of sermons and shadowy church pews from when he was a kid. His family cut ties with Thomas decades ago. Emily looked up from her cereal. What is it, Dad? He laughed bitterly. Apparently, we own a church now. Later that day, curiosity got the best of him. He drove out to the address. What he found wasn't holy, it was haunted. An old stone church, falling apart. Overgrown grass, smashed stained glass, and a rusted iron gate hanging by a thread. As Daniel stepped closer, wind whistled through the cracks. Then, clear as day, a child's voice whispered from inside. Daniel! His blood ran cold. I should have left right then. But I didn't. I stepped through those doors, and into a secret buried deeper than I ever imagined. That night I couldn't sleep. Something about that voice in the church. It felt like it knew me, like it was waiting. The next morning, Daniel's reality snapped back hard. He showed up late to work again. His boss, Rick, a smug, red-faced man who wore his power like cheap cologne, was already waiting. You're late, Harris. Again. You think this place runs on your schedule. Daniel apologized, but it didn't matter. Rick threw a clipboard at his chest and pointed to the parking lot. You're done. Pack your tools. Fired. Just like that. No warning. No severance. No backup plan. Daniel walked out holding a cracked lunchbox and a pink slip. On the way home, his truck sputtered, coughed, and died. Right in the middle of Carson Street. To make it worse, it was his birthday. By the time he got home, there was a note taped to his door. Eviction notice, final warning. Inside, Emily sat on the floor drawing angels in her sketchbook. She looked up, hopeful. Did the church have candles? I think we could live there. I don't mind. Daniel forced a smile. Maybe just for a little while. That evening, they returned to the church with blankets and a flashlight. As Daniel tried to fix a broken window, Emily wandered near the pulpit and froze. Dad, come look. On the side wall, behind layers of old paint and rot, was a mural of a man. Faded but clear. He had Daniel's exact face. Same eyes. Same scar above the eyebrow. Daniel stepped back, stunned. How could that be here? I didn't know what was worse. The fact that my face was on that wall, or the feeling that someone had painted it there for me to find. By the third night, the church didn't feel empty anymore. Felt watched, like someone, or something, was waiting in the shadows. Daniel tried brushing it off. The creaking floors, the whispers at night, the way the candles wouldn't stay lit near the altar. Maybe it was just the wind, or his nerves. Then came Richard Cole. Black SUV, polished shoes, greasy smile. He showed up unannounced while Daniel was hammering wood over a broken stained glass window. Mr. Harris, he said smoothly, I represent Cole Urban Properties. We're developing a new luxury block here. We'd like to buy this place. Fast. Cash offer. Daniel looked around at the ruins. Why would anyone want this place? Richard chuckled. Let's just say the land's more valuable than the building. Sell it and you and your daughter walk away comfortable. You've had a hard life, haven't you? It wasn't a question. It was a pressure point. Daniel said no. Richard's smile tightened. Think about it. Doors like this don't stay open long. That night, Daniel noticed something chilling. Neighbors who once waved now closed their blinds when he walked past. Emily's bike tires were slashed. The mail stopped coming. Someone didn't want them there. Then, just before midnight, Daniel found an envelope slid under the church door. No return name. Inside was a single page. He didn't build this place for God. He built it for what's underneath. Emily pointed to the mural again. Her voice was calm but distant. Dad, that's not just you. That's Granddad. The one you said disappeared before I was born. And just like that, the story I thought I knew about my family began to fall apart. The attic smelled like dust, old wood, and something else, something metallic. Daniel had never been up there before. But after what Emily said about the mural, he had to see if there was more. He climbed the narrow ladder, flashlight flickering. The beam caught dozens of boxes, hymn books, broken candle stands, and one old leather trunk, half buried under a tarp. Inside, he found his uncle's journal. Dozens of pages, handwritten in ink so faded he had to squint. But the words chilled him. The church is only the surface. What lies beneath is why they killed Elijah. And why I'll be next. Elijah, Daniel's father. He flipped through the pages faster now. Descriptions of meetings held at midnight. Strange men in suits. Blueprints. Equations. A drawing of a machine unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Something to do with energy. It didn't make sense. Until he saw the last page. A letter. Addressed to him. Daniel, if you're reading this, it means they didn't get you too. You're the last one now. Protect her. He dropped the journal like it was on fire. Her? Emily? Back downstairs, the church was silent. Too silent. He called out her name. No answer. Panic rising, he ran toward the altar and stopped. The mural had changed. Slightly. Now, the painted version of Daniel was holding a box. A wooden one just like the chest Emily had found earlier. And beneath it, in red paint, a message appeared that hadn't been there before. You open the door. Now they're coming. He turned around fast, and swore he saw a shadow move behind the pulpit. I wasn't imagining things anymore. Whatever this church was hiding, it had just woken up. Daniel barely slept that night. Every creak in the woods sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind felt like a whisper. But when morning came, the fear turned to something worse. Curiosity. Emily was already awake, sitting cross-legged in front of the wooden chest they'd found days earlier. I think it's a puzzle, she said quietly. Like, it wants to be opened the right way. Daniel examined it, old oak, strange carvings on every side, Latin symbols, numbers that didn't make sense. A map was etched across the top, leading nowhere obvious. Then came a knock at the front door. It wasn't Richard. It was a woman in her 60s, dressed in black, with gray eyes that never blinked. I knew Thomas, she said. Your uncle. He never meant for you to be here. Daniel stared. Who are you? I used to be a keeper, she replied. We protected what he built, until they took everything. Before he could ask more, she handed him a small metal key and whispered, Don't trust the man watching from across the street. He's not what he seems. Then she walked away. Daniel stepped outside, looked across the road, and saw the same black SUV from earlier. The same man behind the wheel. Back inside, he used the key to open a hidden drawer in the chest. Inside, a rolled-up blueprint. Something mechanical. Something powerful. And a small, polished stone glowing faintly blue. Emily gasped. That's what I saw in my dream. Daniel froze. What dream? She looked up. Mom told me not to be afraid. She said it's almost time. And then the candles in the church flickered, all at once. Whatever they'd found, someone or something knew they had it now. and it was getting closer. Daniel didn't tell Emily how much her words shook him. How could she dream of something she'd never seen? And why was her mother, gone 3 years, showing up in those dreams now? The next morning, a knock came at the back entrance. Samuel, the homeless man who camped near the church. Except, today he wasn't mumbling or half-drunk like before. Today he looked sharp, focused, eyes alert. "I knew they'd send the woman first," he said. "She's not the only one who's been watching." Daniel stared at him, confused. Samuel looked him in the eye. "I knew your uncle. I knew your father. And I knew you when you were just a baby." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "That's not possible. My father died before I was 5. Samuel reached into his coat and pulled out a photo. Daniel as a toddler in his father's arms. Behind them stood Samuel, younger, cleaner, smiling. "I'm not just some stranger," he said softly. "I'm your grandfather, and I've been hiding for 35 years. Daniel felt the floor drop out beneath him. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but Emily walked in, clutching the blueprint. "It moved," she whispered. "The paper. It shifted on its own." Samuel looked at it and paled. "It's activating. You don't have much time." That night, as Daniel sat alone in the sanctuary, a shadow stepped from behind the organ. It was Richard, except this time he wasn't smiling. "You think you've found something," Richard said. "You haven't. You found a curse your family tried to bury. And if you don't walk away, your daughter will be the one to pay." Daniel stood up, but Richard was already gone. Only a note remained on the pew, in familiar handwriting. "They always come for the child first." Daniel sat in the old church basement, the blueprint laid out in front of him, the glowing stone pulsing like a heartbeat. He didn't say a word for hours. When Samuel finally spoke, it wasn't as a stranger. It was as family. "Your father was a genius, but he wasn't the first. This device, it was your grandfather's work. Mine. We designed it to make homes self-sufficient. Power without a grid. Energy from nothing. No more bills. No more control." Daniel whispered, "Why didn't anyone know?" "Because the moment we tested it," Samuel said, "they came. The companies. The suits. They offered to buy it. When your father refused, they silenced him. Your mother too." Daniel's hands shook. "So Mom's accident?" "Was no accident," Samuel said. "They never forgave your family for disappearing. Now they know you're here, and they're coming to finish what they started." Emily appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "I saw her again," she said softly. "Mom." She was standing in the church, near the stained glass. She said, "We're close." Daniel pulled her in and held her tightly. The next morning, they followed the markings on the blueprint to a sealed chamber beneath the chapel floor. Samuel entered a long-forgotten code into a rusted panel. The door groaned open. Inside was the device, a circular core surrounded by cracked glass tubes and charred wires, but still humming with faint energy. Daniel approached it. The glow from the stone in his pocket intensified. When he placed it into the machine's heart, the room filled with light. Above them, the church lights flickered to life for the first time in decades. And in that moment, Daniel knew 2 things. 1, his family had been telling the truth. 2, someone else had just seen that light turn on. They saw the black SUV again that night. Only this time it didn't park across the street. It pulled into the church driveway. Emily pressed her face to the window. "Dad, it's not just him this time." 3 men in suits stepped out behind Richard. One carried a briefcase. One wore gloves. The last one had a camera and snapped photos of the church, the front door, and Daniel's truck. Then came the knock. Daniel opened the door to find Richard holding a thick envelope and a restraining order. "You've been served," Richard said. "You're trespassing on condemned property. And by harboring a child in an unsafe structure, You've triggered an investigation with Child Protective Services. Daniel's jaw clenched. This is my family's land. Richard smiled. Not for long. The next day, a social worker arrived with 2 officers. Emily cried as they pulled her from Daniel's arms. We're placing her temporarily until we assess the living conditions, the woman said coldly. Daniel didn't fight. He couldn't. Not without losing her for good. That night, the church felt emptier than ever. Samuel stood in the hallway with his head down. They're pulling out all the stops, he said. Legal, political, emotional. Same playbook they used on your father. Daniel looked down at the faintly glowing floor beneath the sanctuary, where the device slept. He knew what they were afraid of, and why they'd risk everything to shut it down. A letter slid under the church door again. This one had no return address. Inside was a single note. Your father gave up. Will you? Daniel lit a candle, stared at the device, and whispered, I've got 24 hours to get my daughter back, and one last shot to burn their whole empire down. The next morning, Daniel woke up on the cold church floor, staring at the ceiling beams lit by soft, unnatural light. The machine was still running, stronger now. It pulsed with quiet power, like it knew what was coming. He didn't have a plan, until Samuel handed him a dusty, sealed envelope marked, to be used only if they take everything. Inside were old city records, blueprints, photographs, but most importantly, documents showing that the land was never legally transferred out of the Harris family. The building had never been condemned. It had been faked. All of it. Forged by Richard Cole. Along with a secret ledger. Massive payouts to city officials, inspectors, even police chiefs. All linked to Cole Urban Properties. Daniel stared at the paper, then at Samuel. If we take this public, Samuel nodded. They'll come down. Fast and hard. That afternoon, Daniel walked into the community hall where a public zoning meeting was being held. Cameras rolled. Local reporters were everywhere. He took the mic and dropped the entire file on the table. I was told this church is worthless, dangerous, haunted, but the only thing buried here is truth, and they've spent years trying to cover it up. The room exploded. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. And then Richard stood up from the back of the room. Calm. Cold. Don't believe his lies, he barked. This man's daughter isn't even in his custody. He's unstable. A new voice interrupted. Firm. Clear. She's with me. Daniel turned. His ex-wife, Emily's mother, walked through the crowd. Alive. She stood beside Daniel, holding Emily's hand. I left because I was forced to. Because I knew the moment he discovered the truth, they'd come for all of us. And now they were finally ready to fight back. It took 3 weeks for everything to unravel. The court ruled in Daniel's favor. The land was legally his. The forged condemnations? Tossed out. The machine was examined by scientists, engineers, and even military reps. No one could explain how it worked. But it worked. Clean, endless power, humming quietly in the church basement. The story went national. Daniel refused to sell it. Instead, he turned the church into a community shelter. Warm beds, hot meals, no electricity bill. People called it a miracle. He called it home. Emily was safe again. She laughed more now, drew more angels in her notebook. Every night, she and Daniel sat on the front steps of the church with hot chocolate, watching the lights flicker across the old stained glass windows. His ex-wife Maya didn't stay, but she told Daniel the truth. She'd gone into hiding after discovering what his uncle had built. She only returned because the machine activated, and she knew they'd come again. Her last words before leaving were simple. You protected it, just like your father hoped you would. But just when Daniel thought the chapter was closed, something new arrived. Plain envelope. No return address. No postmark. Inside, a photograph. It showed Emily, slightly older, standing on the church steps. The trees looked different. The building had new paint. And in her hand, she held something Daniel had never seen before. A glowing red version of the original device. On the back of the photo, in faint handwriting, Emily Harris, April 18, 2029. Protect the second key. Daniel stared at it for a long time, because today was April 17, 2029, and Emily was still only 10 years old. The past had tried to bury the truth, but the future, it was already knocking.